Instagram shares some bombshell advice. We talk Photoshop alternatives, and we look ahead to 2025. All this and more on today's Strong Coffee Drip. Hi again, everyone. I'm Brian from Strong Coffee Marketing. I'm joined by someone equally unimpressed with the heat wave as I am, Ian. Welcome, Ian.
Hi there. How you doing?
30 degrees doesn't happen in Scotland, right?
No, not very often, certainly.
Yeah, we might get it in Edmonton here a few times a year.
Yeah.
I know I had the, sticking with golf like we sometimes talk about, I had the Scottish Open on this morning watching it, and they were wearing pants and sweaters. So I was like, oh, it's summer in Scotland.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was sunny.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not very warm, I don't think.
No.
It's summer. We had a hot week, lots going on still, staying pretty busy. But we did manage Ian and I, to get together in the office on Monday for a meeting. And while we were in the office, an old-fashioned sing-along broke out. The song of choice was Take Me Home, Country Roads, and we made a real musical masterpiece out of it. So our off-topic question for the week, Ian, what's your favorite sing-along song?
Oh my goodness.
And I might preface this by Ian never knows the off-topic questions.
I think a song that's really good for a sing-along, because I'm more of a, I like rock music.
Mm-hmm.
So one that is quite cheesy, but still a great tune. It has to be Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. I think that's got a great sing-along chorus, so that would be my answer.
That's when I think Tommy used to work down at the docks. Gina works in the diner. Yeah. And the only reason I know about those, Ian, because that was my song. But I'm going to go with the one that I thought you were going to say, because I put this whole question on a tee for you.
Okay. Oh, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say the Proclaimers.
The Proclaimers.
I'm going to be bracket 500 miles close bracket.
Oh, you even got the brackets in there too. Yeah. But either of those songs, when it comes on, you can't not sing.
This is true.
And I like Living on a Prayer, especially, you go to a sporting event like a hockey game or a football game, and that comes on, people just start singing like crazy. So, that was fun, Ian. You took mine, and I had to take the presumptive one that I thought you were going to go with. So I set the Scottish guy up for the Proclaimers, and he chose Bon Jovi. Perfect. But getting back to Country Roads for a second, we chatted a little bit about this in the office. So John Denver, born in Roswell, New Mexico, lived 8 years in Tucson, probably with Hector, went to school at Texas Tech, and started his musical career in Los Angeles. No ties to West Virginia whatsoever. As this legend goes, the song was inspired by a road sign in Maryland for the town of Westerport. One of the writers of the song misread it as West Virginia, and the rest is history.
Wow.
So it's a real banger. But yeah, there aren't really any ties of John Denver and West Virginia that I could find anyways. So I look forward to the next time we were in the office. I think we were carrying something heavy up the stairs, and we turned that song on as a sing-along while we carried it up the stairs. So great time was had by all. That concludes our musical lesson for today. A couple of quick hitters before we get rolling. In the news this week, there's been some interesting stories. First one I like to call It's All About the Sends. In a recent Q&A on Instagram, Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, highlighted that increasing your post's reach hinges more on send rates, the likelihood that users will share your content rather than metrics like likes or comments. He emphasized that shares per reach are a better indicator of overall visibility because Instagram aims to promote content that encourages connections among users. This approach marks a shift from previous emphasis on engagement metrics to prioritize content focusing on sharing. So this is kind of an interesting one on my end, doing a lot of social work, and I was doing a social strategy today, in fact, where, you've always kind of thought of reach and the spread of a piece of content is directly related to the engagement that we see, likes, comments, etc. But this whole idea of sharing between users through messaging, etc., is something that's a little bit new and hasn't really come up much. But I just found that really interesting to see that there's this other thing. The algorithm has so many different things at play, but this other thing that maybe we hadn't really thought much about, and he came out right out and said this plays a critical role.
Yes, it is interesting. I think to me the news that the CEO came out and said is as interesting as the information itself, because the algorithm's always been a bit of a black box sort of thing. We have ideas of what's causing your engagement to go up or down, or the kinds of things that they're looking for, but they've never, or it's rare that they come out and actually say, if you do this, your engagement will go up, kind of thing, or your reach will go up.
Yeah.
And they've added the send icon now, which I don't believe was there before with the number. You've always had the number of likes or whatever, but next to it they've added the send one now as well, so you can see how well your content is being shared. So it is interesting.
Yeah. And you know what? I appreciate when people in charge do drop those nuggets. Like, I know you and I both spend a lot of time on YouTube, and I know, like, even on the creator side of YouTube, back in YouTube Studio, they'll drop little things over on the side or on the blog. I know there's a YouTube liaison on TikTok. He works at YouTube. He does videos on YouTube, but I see him on TikTok, and he regularly answers questions about, should I repost a video that didn't do really well? And I appreciate that there's some transparency there, because I think when you are somebody that's posting on social, attempting to get reach for yourself or for your business, a little bit of, inside info can help you. So,
yes, absolutely.
I appreciate that. Second little story that came out too this past week. X has released some new usage statistics aimed at enticing advertisers as it moves into the second half of the year. Despite conflicting reports, X claims it's experiencing monthly user growth with 570 million people logging in monthly, marking a 6% increase year over year. Daily user seconds have reached 361.9 billion, and daily video views have surged by 45% to 8.2 billion. However, X hasn't disclosed daily active users, which have remained stagnant for 250 million since November of 2022. This raises some discrepancies about whether or not actual engagement levels on the platform, the numbers that are being reported, are actually true. Considering there has been some data that has come out previously, which kind of conflicts what we're hearing now, and some of the claims that Elon has made in the past too. So for me, I see this let's just muddy the water even more, because I know they're really wanting to bring more advertisers over to Twitter or X. And I don't know I know they're trying to show that more people are using X, but I think there's been other things that have happened in the past that just muddy it up, and we don't really know what to think.
Yeah, I kind of agree here. As you say, the numbers have increased. I think it's by 20 million monthly users year over year. Yeah. But when you look at all the other data, it's like, where are these people coming from? The daily users don't appear to have gone up, and so where are the numbers coming from? I believe many lawyers have often said, you can make statistics tell any story you want, sort of thing. And is this a case of them just slicing the numbers the way they want to make it tell their story? I'm not sure.
Yeah. You know what? And it's interesting about X, because I've been talking to a lot of clients in recent weeks as I've been doing some work. They're all kind of asking me the same question about X, is like, where should we stand on it? And I think this will be something we'll talk about in a future podcast, because at one time, I think it was kind of the social media darling. Everybody loved it because it wasn't Facebook, and that it was neat and different, and you had to keep things short, and OG TweetDeck was there. And then, it kind of got maybe a little bit stale. And now we're into this whole new realm of X where it's kind of made a bit of an abrupt turn and a lot of people in their minds are like, is this worth staying on? Should I go somewhere else? I know usage statistics for Threads came out recently too. So maybe we can do a comparison one day. You love data. I'll do some comparisons. Yeah. On the next episode, Ian's going to walk us through data. No. And one final one that was just in the news just the other day, I think like 2 days ago, Reuters is reporting that Alphabet has walked away from a deal to buy Hubspot. We've talked about the whole Google Hubspot deal for a few months now. I think we've mentioned it on multiple podcasts. And it looks like it just is completely dead now. It wasn't a whole lot to the story, but that it looks like it's just, they've kind of just walked away from it. So I thought it was going to be really fun and could really bring two kind of powerhouses together. But you know what? Obviously something didn't work out from this report, and I guess we move on.
It didn't give any information about why. It was just
not tons. No, hopefully there's some more that comes out, because
I
don't know. I kind of thought it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah,
but whatever. We move on.
Indeed, we do.
Talk about AI. We've talked about AI multiple times, and it's taking the marketing world by storm. In recent episodes, we've talked about some of the amazing tools on the market, but also about some of the implications that AI could create in the creative space. Talked about that just a couple weeks ago. A company by the name of Binder has released a study that highlights consumer interactions with AI versus human-generated content. Half of the surveyed consumers can discern AI-generated copy, with millennials leading the way in detection, possibly due to their higher AI usage. Surprisingly, 56% of participants preferred AI-generated articles over human-written articles, yet over half have expressed reduced engagement with suspected AI content in the past. Many perceive brands using AI for content as impersonal or lazy, emphasizing the importance of maintaining a human touch in marketing despite AI's efficiency benefits. There's a lot to digest in this article, and I know as somebody that likes data, this is like your kind of article. So we've touched on a lot of these things. We've touched on AI tools in the past. We've touched on how they can make your life easier when it comes to creating content. Just recently, we talked about the Toys R Us commercial that was AI generated, and kind of the mixed reaction that it was getting. And now a study like this comes out where I don't know what to think of it. Is it that AI content is getting really good to the point that almost half of the people can't figure out if it's AI, or that it isn't very good and half the people are like, no, I can totally tell this is AI? And people not necessarily trusting companies using AI. What's your take on this? As somebody that loves data, loves statistics, loves AI, this has you all over this.
This is a really interesting one to me for a number of reasons. The first kind of part that is, as you mentioned, the numbers are all kind of around that 50% mark. I think they said that in the US, 55% of people could tell the difference between an AI written piece and a human written piece. And in the UK, the same size sample, it was somewhere about 45%. And when you only have two options and you just take a guess, you can expect a 50% ratio of one versus the other kind of
coin
thing.
flip.
Yeah, basically. So exactly. So it's basically a coin flip. And these numbers are very much within that ballpark. So I when I read it, I was kind of chuckling to myself, wondering, can these people know the difference? They say 54% of people can tell the difference. It's like, can they, or are they really just guessing? Is everyone just guessing here? So that was kind of funny to me. And interesting as well, because it'll be interesting to see if that number changes, if more people, or if it goes down. And I don't see how it can go down by much, because eventually people are just going to be guessing, and you're going to get kind of the same numbers. So there's that. I thought it was interesting that the age group of 25 to 34 were the people who were most likely to recognize the difference, and also that in that group, more than half did prefer the human-generated content, which I thought was interesting. But again, we are still in that ballpark of 50 to 55%. So it's kind of like, again, it could all just be, oh, I prefer that one, I prefer this one, and whatever else. But the most interesting part was about 20% of people said that they feel like a brand would be, impersonal, untrustworthy, and lazy if they used AI to generate social copy. And the fact that people feel that way, although from these numbers, it appears that we can't tell the difference. People are only aware half the time, if they are aware at all. I think it says more about human nature than about the standard of AI, and the fact that nobody wants to believe they can be tricked. It's the whole similar to, we've had this difficulty with like scams and things like that for a number of years, whereby you don't want to think, oh, I would feel like a foolish person if I were tricked by a scam, but it's kind of like they're designed in a way to overcome that kind of thing, so that you do feel like, oh, this has to be real because, and I think, yeah, I just find that interesting, and I don't know that people will get any better at dictating or deciding whether or not something is AI generated, and the AI stuff isn't going to get worse. From here, it's only going to get better. So I think if they conducted this testing again in about a year or two, I feel like the numbers would probably be exactly the same. I don't think people are going to get any better or any worse at dictating, differentiating the AI. Sorry.
And you touched on it just now, but I remember a few weeks ago you mentioned this too. This is the worst that AI is going to be today, right now.
Yeah.
It's not going to get worse in the next months and years. It's only going to get better. Yeah. So if we're sitting at this range now, if you did this study in a year from now, will it still be around 50-50? Perhaps. Could it sway one way or the other? Will people become somewhat kind of reluctantly on board? Like, I guess I really don't care who created this. It's entertaining or informative, and I don't really care. Or will some people be like, well, no, I like that human element. That's kind of where I am. The human element of a story, telling a story, etc. But again, it's not going to get worse. It's only going to get better.
I think you have to reposition, to find out whether people are more likely to pick one over the other. I think you kind of have to reposition the question, whereby you can't tell them that one's AI written and one's human written. You would just sort of say, here are two pieces. Which do you prefer? And then if one of those starts to get towards the 80% part, then you're like, okay, well, this is the one that people like. And if that's the AI generated one, then you can start to learn that people are being more fooled by it, or whether they're fooled by it or not, that the AI is writing something that's resonating with that reader in a way that the human generated one isn't. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? I'm guessing there are only going to be more of these types of studies to come out in months and years from now. I'm sure at some point we'll start seeing these about images. Can you tell whether or not this image is real? This video, all this kind of stuff coming. So, this will be, I'm sure, something we'll be chatting about in the days, weeks, and months ahead. So in the office this week, there was some talk outside of our sing-alongs, which it was just you and I for the sing-alongs. I wish the whole team would have been there. We could have really got it
worked
going.
on our harmonies.
There's a lot of work to be done. Luckily, the background music was there to drown out our singing. It worked out really well. There was some talk in the office this week about photo editing and graphic design tools. While many consider Photoshop to be kind of that gold standard still, there are a lot of other options out there. And, you brought this email thread up a few days ago. What do you think is the best alternative to Photoshop right now?
Yeah, there are many, many alternatives, as you say, and Adobe's products have been the industry standard for a long time. But Adobe was in the news recently for upsetting quite a few people with changes to their terms of service, and it's kind of, I think, riled people the wrong way, and they've decided that actually what I don't want to be on a subscription model for software like this anymore. What other options are out there? And the one that I mentioned to the team recently is Affinity's products. And the reason for that is partly because Affinity is a competitor to Adobe. Obviously, they offer some similar products, but they're also they're not hiding the fact that they're out to make some gains here at the expense of Adobe, while Adobe are in the bad books, kind of thing. So Affinity recently, they discounted all their software by 50%. If you buy the full suite, it's 50% off, and they've started offering a 6-month free trial of all the software. So a couple of things there just to try and hook a few people in. But I have used Affinity Photo, which is the Photoshop alternative. Their suite also includes an alternative to InDesign and an alternative to Illustrator as well. So they have 3 apps. But I haven't used those very much, but I've used the Photoshop one, and it is very good. It's a good piece of software. I'm not saying that it's the best one out there necessarily, but if you are one of the people who has perhaps been upset by Adobe recently, and you're kind of trying to get out of that loop of paying every month your $10 to $50, depending on which plan you're on, then it might be worth giving that a try. Affinity Photo 2, like I say, you can get a 6-month free trial right away. So yeah, it's good. It does most of what Photoshop does. I use Photoshop quite a lot and in quite in depth. And there are definitely some bits and bobs that it can't do there. But it does cover, I would say it covers a good 80% of the bases. And unless you're using it very, very heavily, you're probably going to be able to do what you can do in Photoshop in Affinity as well. Affinity Photo, I should say.
So somebody that might just want to have a good photo editor, but doesn't want to pay the monthly subscription.
Absolutely, yeah.
Somebody that maybe wants to learn more about it without paying a subscription. This might be a really good alternative.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely right.
Yeah. Mine ties into Affinity, but isn't Affinity. Mine is Canva. And I know people are like, oh, it's the most obvious answer of all time. But I can tell you, like, I remember when Canva first came out years and years ago, and I used it, and it was good because it just did the basics. It had some templates. It was pretty easy to use. And then I've moved away and use other tools. I still use Capwing quite a bit. I really enjoy Capwing for different things. But recently I went back and was using Canva for something. It's made leaps and bounds since when it came out. The AI integration's now really, really good. It's a pretty solid tool, not at the level of Photoshop or Affinity, the products you've been talking about, but for somebody that maybe just needs to be able to do the basics. I know I work a lot with municipalities, and oftentimes municipalities will have some people in-house that can do the basics, like to, here's some files we've had previously. We just need to rejig them. Canva is like easily the tool of choice for them. For a small business owner, I could see Canva being an option. And the reason I mentioned that it kind of fits with yours is, how many months ago was this? We talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah, maybe about 2 months ago, I think.
2 months ago, Canva bought Affinity, correct?
Yes, they did indeed.
Yeah. So, could that open the door to some collaboration, some cross-platform sharing, etc.? I'm sure that's all in the works. But yeah, I've been quite amazed at how Canva has got considerably better since it first came out. And I think when it did come out, it really opened the doors for a lot of other people that weren't using Photoshop. There weren't too many really good alternatives, and Canva, I think, really opened the door and showed people, hey, you can do graphic design work when you need something in a pinch, or you just want to give it a try. And it was kind of that gateway tool for a lot of people. So shout out to Canva. It's lots of really good things happening there. And anybody that knows me, I'm not a Photoshop genius. That's not my thing. Microsoft Paint I can handle, but that's about it.
I think the other interesting thing about Canva as well, of course, is even if you are a Photoshop power user and all you need is, I have an image and I want to put this frame around it and put some text on top. If you take that into Photoshop, it doesn't take too long to do, but it's like if you want to just throw it into Canva, you can probably still do it in like half the time in Canva than you could in Photoshop, just because it is so simple to do. So
even just simple cropping and stuff too. I got to crop something to a size for social or something along like that.
Absolutely.
And if you are part of an organization or a team, you can upgrade to where you can install your brand kit into Canva. So if other people on your team are working in it, they can pull the same yellows or blues that are in your logo, and they don't have to guess. And that can bring a lot of consistency. You can create templates for your team, etc. too. So a lot of our clients, when they are using Canva, they've upgraded to that ability to have that brand kit, and so they can bring some consistency across the board.
Absolutely.
Nothing like guessing at your logo colors to have them wrong and producing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, that'd be great. We wrap things up with a look into the future. Get your crystal ball out, Ian. Do you have a crystal ball?
Not to hand.
I don't think I have anything I don't think I have anything that represents a crystal ball here. But we'll pretend there's one right here, and we're looking. The date is July 12th, 2025. We are recording episode 50-ish of the Strong Coffee Drip. What's the biggest marketing story that we're discussing? And I know you have some controversial ones, so I'll go first. Yeah. So if we have to edit it after, I can just cut you off.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good.
Okay, yeah, so for me, I think it'll be the TikTok ban. Now, there's a lot of things up in the air here. I think a big part of it depends on who wins the presidential race in the States. I don't think it'll be banned. And I mean, we'll have a lot more clarity by then, because I think the ban technically is supposed to take effect by January of 2025. So if we're sitting there in July, we should have a better idea of which way it's going. We've talked about in previous episodes, there's the rumors out there that they're creating a US version of TikTok. Would something like that sweep in and then it's really not a story anymore? Would the presidential election and whoever wins have an influence on what happens, or do timelines get pushed back? Because if you think about January, that's when, if presidency was to switch, that's when it would be happening, except there's all sorts of things there. So I really do think this thing's going to come to a head in 2025. I don't think it's going to get banned, but I bet you by July of 2025, we're going to still be talking about it. You know, whether it's get delayed in the courts or it's not happening and we've all moved on, I think that's still going to be a really big story. 365 days from now, you and I will still not have hair.
No.
We'll probably be complaining that it's hot.
Probably.
Because it'll be July. Yeah. So, okay. So I know you've got a few. Roll with it, Ian. It's July 2025. What are we talking about?
One of the following will be in the news. I'm not sure which, but one of the following. So option number one, we talk a lot about AI in this show. Neither you nor I are AI experts by any means. I think we both just find it interesting and try and learn a bit more about it as we can. But,
enthusiasts.
Yeah, enthusiasts, exactly. But I think this time next year, it's possible that the news could be saying artificial general intelligence has been achieved. Now, at the moment, we've got a lot of different things which are very good at narrow artificial intelligence. They're great at one thing, but AGI would be a device and intelligence which is as good as an average human at any average task. So that's quite possible to be in the news. If not, I think robots in the workplace could be beginning to unsettle physical labor in the workplace. So I don't think it will be a case of all humans are now replaced with robots. Far from it, but I think we could be inching towards that tipping point by a year from now. You'll start to see some of the bigger companies which currently use manual labor starting to employ robots instead, and that will start to make people realize that this is the direction things could be going. And my third and final point, which could be in the headlines this year today, is either Elon Musk or Sam Altman. One of them is going to be in jail. I don't know which. No additional context.
Yeah, no context whatsoever.
That's the headline.
Okay. I now, if one of those was to come true, you'd be pretty smart. If the third one came true, you'd be like, "What did you know a year ago?" So I like that there's no context to the third one.
I have no idea why. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case in a year. That's all.
Something. Yeah. Robots in the workplace. There's a great Thai restaurant that my wife and I go to sometimes, and they have a waiter that's a robot that brings your food with a cat face, and it plays music when it comes out.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's as soon as you hear that music, you know the food's coming from the kitchen. Here comes the robot, and then it says like "enjoy your food" or something like that. So, robots are already here, Ian.
I'm behind the times.
Yeah, you got to go to the restaurants.
That's less than a year away. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Covered a lot of ground today. We talked about sing-along songs. We talked about AI. Covered some of the important things that have gone on in the news for the last couple of weeks. I think that wraps up an episode. Now, this is a milestone episode, Ian. This is episode number 20.
Wow.
So congrats to you and I and sometimes Duncan for making this 20 episodes. Started in November of last year. And so haven't been doing it quite every single week because we get busy with other things. But episode 20, I think, a real milestone. And there's only one thing left to do after hitting episode 20. Ian, do you know what that is?
I do not.
You don't?
No.
It's getting ready for episode 21, which will be next week.
Well, there's definitely that.
Yeah, yes, that's kind of the given.
Okay.
I don't know if there are any other traditions that go along with episode 20, but, we made it.
We did.
Not at the top of the mountain, but we made it to halfway to base camp.
Okay.
So, yeah. We'll get ready for episode 21. We will be back next week with that very episode. Ian, let's get back to work. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.